Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are here at the nursery. We're going to spend some time underneath the pines because I want to share with you some inspiration for your shade garden. I tend to have much more sun gardens, full sun gardens. We built our house in the middle of a field 20 years ago, so I have tons of full sun. But I do have a couple of areas of shade, and of course Mimi's garden, right, is definitely a shade garden. So sometimes I tend to naturally talk about more sun ideas, but I want to spend some time talking about your shade garden because right now here we are in the middle of July and the shade gardens are looking lush and beautiful, and I want to share that with you so you can start thinking about, do you want to add something right now? Do you want to add something later on in the fall? What is it that you are looking to enhance your shade garden with? So I want to give you some ideas, some plants we have here, both that are still in their containers, but also look at the display gardens that we have in the pines, because the pines is naturally going to be that more shaded area, right? We do have it's real original, y'all. This is why we call it the pines, is because this whole area is underneath, the majority of them are pine trees. Yes, we have some poplars and some maples in here, but this area of the nursery is where we keep those predominantly shade loving shrubs, perennials, and annuals, so that you can come, of course, shop those plants, but also get ideas of things that you can add to your garden. So we're just gonna go through, give you some ideas. Yes, I'll talk about specific plants, but also just kind of general inspiration. Here we have an area, clearly this is where a lot of the unique stone is displayed, but this is the area where I have put in a lot of the test hostas that our friends at Walter's Gardens has sent us over the couple of years. Most of these started out as very small. They were like little liners, so they were probably not much bigger than, say, like my thumb. And so, to have a hosta that's like a nice good size, then that is, it takes a little bit of time. And some of these we planted close together. But I wanted you to see that with the hostas, right? They come in just such a range of colors and shapes. You can absolutely, of course, put them directly into the ground. I love a good hosta in a container, y'all. It just depends on what your mature size of your hosta is for like the size of your container, right? This particular hosta has been in here for several years. I'm not honestly sure. I'm trying to look for the tag. Oh, there we go. It is humpback whale. So humpback whale is in there with a unique stone container. You're gonna see more hostas in containers that we have, but you absolutely can put perennials in those containers. This is to give you an idea. At the house, I have some Aurelia Sun Kings, right? And there's two of them and they're huge. They are massive. Here I have another Sun King. This is just one plant, but to show you the difference, because this area is not on irrigation, so really honestly, unless it rains, it does not get watered. Like, we don't even come over here and water it. But it will show you, those hostas, man, they're established and they're doing great. But to kind of give you an idea, if your Sun King is smaller, on the small side like this one, this is probably right about 3 feet tall, versus mine at the house, which is every bit of 5.5 feet tall. It's all about water, y'all. The more water you give it, the more it's gonna grow. But this Aurelia Sun King is a fantastic plant, perennial. It will die completely down to the ground in the wintertime, so it will, quote, disappear, go away, just like your hostas, but it gives you that beautiful chartreuse color during the growing season. And once it comes up and emerges, it grows really fast. So let's talk about, we're talking about perennials. What is a perennial? By definition, a perennial is a plant that will come back for 2 or more years. Some perennials are much longer lived than others, and of course, just like with all plants, sometimes we have our messes and successes. Some will last for forever, and some, will last maybe 4 or 5 years, and then they just kind of peter out. I just say it gives you more options to put things into your garden. So, but the Sun King is a really nice, because it'll get some height to it. Again, more water you give it, the bigger it will be. Like mine at the house, huge. Mine at the house also gets morning sun right up till lunchtime, and can handle it really, really well. But if you just saw the video that I did last week, I believe it was, where I was cleaning up that garden, I was starting to have a little bit of burn on the leaves. So you know that maybe it's getting a little too much sun if you have some burn. I have no burn on these leaves, and so I know that it is getting a great filtered amount of sun and doing really well. It is a cloudy day here today, so you're not going to be able to see kind of the filtered sun that we have in this area. Going through this garden, we planted a couple of years ago. We were trying to get a display garden here in the shade. And this has been, it has done well. This part is on irrigation. We added irrigation last year to it. And so it certainly has helped, overall with the plants to do really well. But, it is still under pine trees. And so that's one of the things that maybe you struggle with is in the shade, because you have competition from, your surrounding trees with your water and your nutrients. So just kind of keep that in mind, is that you absolutely can have gorgeous shade gardens, aka look at Mimi's garden, dry shade garden. She has no irrigation whatsoever on it and still has an unbelievable, amazing garden. Does she have to water by hand? She does, but it is definitely possible. So in here, what we were doing is trying to give a variety. And y'all, this bed has been neglected as far as like maintenance wise. So you've got another great option for you if you're looking for evergreen plants, shrubs for your shade garden. You can do Florida Sunshines or the banana peel. So they're Alyssiums. They're a type of anise. They are this beautiful chartreuse evergreen shrub. They are deer resistant, not deer proof, right? But you love these Alyssiums because they have, when you crush the leaves, or when like the deer or the rabbits were to bite it, it has a licorice flavor to it. So that's what tends to make them more resistant to the critters. Now, maintenance on these guys, like this one is, she's interesting on what she's doing. She's a little sprawled out, but then you've got this section right here that is just shooting up and being like a little soldier, just all nice and tall and happy. Personally, that kind of drives me crazy because it's not in a line with the rest of the plant. So what you can easily do, and you honestly can do this at any point, y'all, just come in and get your clippers and clip it right above where the leaves are. That way it just kind of puts it back into shape, puts it back into size for the rest of the plant, and then it will thicken up and be very happy. So the Florida Sunshines Banana Appeal, the really difference between Florida Sunshine and Banana Appeal is that the leaf size. One's a little bit bigger. I can't remember now off the top of my head which one is bigger. Either way. So we've also got, of course, lots of hostas in here, right? Tons of hostas. We've got ferns, whether it's like the native woodland ferns. We've got some little holly ferns in here. Another great option for you if you're looking for evergreen with some height are your acubas. Acubas, great evergreen. They a lot of times are this beautiful, like variegated, speckled look to it. This is gold dust, and gold dust has gorgeous, nice big waxy leaves that have those flecks of yellow in it. Again, easy peasy, y'all. Long term, this will get nice and big. That is why we put it towards the back of the garden. We've also got some japonica camellias in here that give me really beautiful flowers in the wintertime. So of course we love that. And then rhododendrons. Rhododendrons typically for us do really well in these kinds of conditions where you have that filtered sun. And so, well, yes, they do get some great light. This can be a very bright area, but they don't get a lot of direct sun. I have some rhododendrons up at the entrance bed, and we are struggling to keep them. It doesn't matter how much water we give them, but I think they just get way too much sun up there, and so they have been on the struggle bus for sure. Now this one back here, she's living her best life and is doing really well. So if you're in that, southern climate like I am, I would suggest, if you want a rhododendron, of course we love the rhododendrons because they give us those beautiful, big, huge flowers in that early spring, and they're gorgeous, but I would say filtered sun for sure. Because if you go up to the mountains, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, that's where they tend to really shine, is in the edges of the woodland, white, and all that kind of area, in that area right there. So lots of ferns. Another great fun option is back here. My gosh, y'all, they are doing great. This is, look at this. This is Woo La La. That is a massive hosta. Now you might look at Woo La La right here and be like, oh my gosh, what in the world happened to the leaves? Like, she looks beat up. Well, she is beat up because remember when we had the flood back in May, we also lost a tree. Like, there was a tree just right here, and it split. Like, it was actually a forked tree way up at the top. It looked like it was a whole separate tree. It wasn't a separate tree. It was just a fork way up in the tree. That split off and fell. So Woo La La got damaged. She got beat up from the top of the pine tree. So that's why we have the cuts and the holes in Woo La La. But it gives you an idea of some nice height difference, right? Because your hostas come in so many different shapes and sizes. So we've got the Woo La La, and then, bless her heart, this is Wee, and so Wee obviously got damaged as well, but Wee is a nice short, very roughly edged to it, and that's more in the front. So with your gardens, right, we work from tall in the back down to short in the front. Edgeworthia. Edgeworthia is a really fun shrub. It's also known as a paper bush because the Chinese would actually use Edgeworthia to make paper. And Edgeworthia is an amazing shrub because for 3 seasons out of the year, you get this gorgeous foliage. It almost has a little bit of a grayish hue to it, and look how big those leaves are. They are huge, and they almost have like a little bit of a soft, silky texture to them. We have 3 of them right here, and now these are on irrigation, so I think that helps a lot with them. They've been in the ground for maybe 2 years, but in my opinion, the absolute best thing about Edgeworthia is that in wintertime, really kind of mid to late winter, just kind of depends, they will start to bloom. So they are deciduous, so they will lose their leaves. They have a really nice, pretty kind of yellow color in the fall. They'll lose their leaves, but then they do these like really tight clumps of flowers on the tips of the stems, and they're this mass of these trumpet-shaped blooms that smell amazing. They have the most delicious fragrance, and I don't know about you, but coming out of winter, and we don't even have like, you know, tough winters here in North Carolina, but coming out of winter and going into spring, when I start to see things blooming in my garden, I get really excited about that. So when I get flowers and a fragrance, I mean, hello, sign me up, absolutely. So Edgeworthia, if you can find an Edgeworthia to add to your shade garden, most definitely want to do that as well. Caladiums, I know we talk about caladiums a ton here in the South. Y'all, add caladiums to your garden. There is no way that I would ever get red in my shade garden throughout the growing season if it weren't for these caladiums. Gorgeous. Now, this particular color, and I always put my tags on it, this is Radiance. And Radiance will do sun or shade, but how beautiful is it? You have got lots of that red, almost like a pink kind of color to it. You'll see some of them have more of a green edge, some have them a little bit of cream in there. Absolutely beautiful color for your shade garden. So don't think that you have to have only flowers to make an interesting shade garden. Absolutely not. That's what I love about shade garden, because in my brain, it tends to be a lot less, I don't know, stressful. if that makes any kind of sense. So shade gardens just naturally give that whimsy of, you can have one of something. You can have, you have hostas, and maybe you've got 5 hostas, 10 hostas, 30 hostas, 50 hostas, and they could all be, each one could be different, but the whole thing works together. Sometimes in my brain, in a sun garden, especially like maybe the front of your house, they tend to be more formal areas that it has to be like super balanced and like matchy. In a woodland garden, in a shade garden, for me, it's just, that's just not how it works. Maybe I'm just crazy. I mean, I probably am crazy, but anyway, that works for me in my brain. So I really, when I get a chance to go to a shade garden, I am all about it. And it's just more peaceful and relaxing for me in a shade garden. Speaking of a fun, whimsical, like trying to really embrace that woodland garden look, ostrich ferns. Now, y'all, yes, we have a fountain right here. This is the 2-tiered version of it's the same fountain that's in the signature garden, except this is a smaller version. It's a 2-tier, not a 3-tier. And no, we don't have electricity to it. Hope that's on the to-do list, but at least it's up. Like, you can see the structure. One of these days we will get it running. But what I love about this is the ostrich ferns. Ostrich ferns are a beautiful fern that will naturalize. The more water they get, the more they will spread. They spread by rhizomes, and so very superficial. They don't have super deep roots, but they will send out runners around them and they will colonize. Now, depending on your garden, because I did have ostrich ferns very early on in that shade garden beside the driveway, and it did not work because that's a very small bed and they were kind of taking over. So I took them out and I added them here behind the fire pit next to what we call, that's our nursery part of the nursery. That's where we grow the shade perennials and shrubs. But this area, like, I want them to naturalize. I want them to completely take over this area around the fountain. It gives it just a beautiful, soft look. Very, keeps out the weeds, right? Because we deal with stilt grass. Back here, you can see some of it here on the edges, and then back there in the back is kind of an invasive grass. So the ostrich ferns keep that at bay, but just gives a very soft, romantic look. And then if we ever can get the fountain going, then we'll really be doing good for that. But with your shade garden, talking about containers, and because, you know, sometimes in the shade garden, they tend to be more prone to critters, and we have nature. How dare nature enjoy nature? I mean, the audacity of it, right? And so whether you're dealing with deer or rabbits or skunks or possums or raccoons, my aunt lives in South Carolina, kind of go like a little bit like low country South Carolina. Armadillos, that's new for her. And I'm like, dear Aunt Bonnie, you can keep the armadillos. Please do not let the armadillos come up to us. So that can be quite a problem. So the reason I'm telling you this is because we have a new critter enjoying itself here out in the pines. So if you can see all of the pine needles here that have been completely disturbed, somebody is coming in at night and is digging. I suspect for like grubs and worms and that kind of thing. So we're not coming through here trying to like ruffle up the edges of the beds. We have a little critter, and I really suspect that it is either a raccoon or a possum that is coming in here. And so right now they're not messing with the plants. They're just creating they're aerating the soil and the pine needles for us. So that's an interesting new development here at Creekside. And because people ask all the time, you know, what do you do? How do you deal with deer? And how do you deal with the deer pressure in your garden? And praise the Lord, so far we have not had an issue with deer. Now, do we have deer? We do. In fact, this morning, Jerry and I were on the front porch drinking our coffee at, I don't know, 6:30 in the morning, and I look up and I'm like, is that a dog? No, it was not a dog. We had 3 bucks. 3 bucks that were between the privacy berm and the house, closer up towards the privacy berm. They had just kind of wandered out from the woods and were just kind of like sitting there. And of course, now you're all gonna say, well, what about Brenna? Well, yeah, Brenna was in the front yard, completely clueless. Like she never saw those deer, nothing. I was like, well, you know, you got to earn your keep around here, sister. But yeah, so they just ended up wandering back into the woods. Unfortunately, there is not any kind of deer-proof plant. We get asked that all the time. There are not deer-proof. There are deer-resistant that we can talk about. But if a deer is hungry, then the deer will eat anything to survive, because that's, you know, obviously if they're starving, they're going to eat. So we are blessed that they leave all of our plants alone. All of our hostas are out here and they just leave us alone, and we don't have to deal with them at all. Now, I've got some containers that I want to share with you that are gorgeous. So if you deal with moles, voles, rabbits, these might be some great options for you to use and implement into your garden. Pots, containers in the shade garden. If you deal with pests, this is one of Mimi's #1 ways to control voles in her garden, is to put a lot of her plants are in containers. Get them up so that the critters can't get to them. Deer might be a little bit of a different issue because, you know, they're big and they're tall. But so I'm going to share with you some ideas that you can use for containers, because essentially, as long as your container is big enough, you basically can put anything in a container. There are very few plants that I can think of that I'm like, they don't really do well in containers. Go big. I always tell people, get the biggest size container that your space will allow. Because the more room you have in your container, the more soil you have, the more water retention you have, the more nutrients will hold in there, the more room for the roots to grow from the plant, and they will be very, very happy, and you literally can leave them out for years. Depending on your climate, depending on what type of container you use, you can leave containers out for, like I said, year round. I have a container that I'll show you here in a minute that literally has been here probably 5 or 6 years and just does great. So, ideas for containers. Of course, we have a lot of unique stone here, right? So unique stone, aqua pots, those kinds of things. This is a beautiful, nice, big, unique stone bowl that is, I love this. I don't currently have these in my garden, but you know, time is of the essence, and so why not go ahead and add some? But the idea here is that these are not planted. The plants are for sale, but these are rhododendrons. So here you have, we actually have 3 in there just for the display purposes, but you would plant, like I personally, if I were going to take this container and I wanted a rhododendron in there, I would plant a rhododendron, and then maybe this year you add in, because this is such a large container, you could add in a smaller hydrangea if you wanted to. You could put in some ferns, you could put in some bleeding hearts, you could put in hostas and pulmonaria and all sorts of great things. The pittosporum, right? So we've got the Mojo pittosporum down here, beautiful variegated foliage, and so you've got interest year-round in a container. So that most definitely is an option for you. You could also go ahead and put camellias. So if maybe you're in a climate that your winters are too cold for camellias, well, guess what? Pop it in a container, and then if you're able, you can move the container in for the winter. So we have some of the camellias from Proven Winners. This is really fun because I've just seen these for like the first time in a couple of weeks, and y'all, there are buds all over these plants. So this is the Just Chill camellias from Proven Winners, and they're relatively new on the market, but fun thing. So these are fall bloomers. They've got buds all over them. So your camellias, they do love, they are more of a southern. The Just Chills are more cold tolerant, so I think they can go like to a zone 6. And so this is the pink one, to kind of give you an idea here. Let me show you the tag. Yeah, so this is the Just Chill, the red tip. It is a pink flower, but it's called a red tip because, come back up here, the new foliage has a red hue to it. So you can see it on the tips, they are red. So that would be an option for you. So for my people who are in those colder zones that want to do camellias or even gardenias, I know gardenias are more sun, but maybe you're too cold, put them in a container. And then in the wintertime, put it in your garage. Not that it even has to be like a really heated space, but just that it is protected. So that certainly is an option for you as well. We've showed you this just a couple of times, but we did, right before the signature experience, we put 2 containers together. So the 2 white ones right here, these are just traditional pots. These are from Michael Carr, but they're a traditional pot. And so there's that ceramic glazed pottery, has that drainage hole in the bottom. I did put an aquapot insert in there to help with, you know, retaining water in it. It was a traditional size one, right? Because they only have one size right now for that aquapot. But fun fact, come this fall, they're going to have 2 new sizes. So they're going to have a mini and a large. The large would be perfect to go in here. But in this container, right, we did an akuba. So you've got a beautiful shrub, evergreen shrub. We have the Carex grass. This is the Everillo, another beautiful evergreen perennial. We did heaven sent, which is like a Jacob's ladder. Now this will be deciduous, but that's okay. It looks like a fern, but it is not. And then we have the cast iron plant, a beautiful, again, nice green upright foliage on it that is evergreen, and then a hosta back there. So even in the wintertime, you're gonna have interest from your akuba, from your grass, and from your cast iron plant. Yes, your heaven sent and your hosta are gonna, quote, go away, but come spring, they will come back bigger and better than ever. Honestly, in this kind of container, you could probably leave it 3 years before maybe you start to have to pull somebody out, right? So that's kind of the idea, is that if you have to pull somebody out, well, then you just add them to your garden. It is not that big of a deal. And then this one just kind of did a little bit of a different take. We have that Florida Sunshine, right? That beautiful Elysium, still nice evergreen. You have that. And then we have a hydrangea. Now, this hydrangea did not have a name on it, so I don't know exactly which one it is. It is part of the Let's Dance series. Y'all, look at that. Look at that massive bloom. Gorgeous pink. And so it isn't, because it's in a container and because of the fertilizer that we use, it will turn them that lovely pink. So you've got a brand new bloom, and then you can see in there we have got some aged ones as well. Now, we've got that, and then we did a euchera. So in the wintertime, you're gonna have your Elysium and you're gonna have your euchera. Yes, the hydrangea is gonna go dormant, right? And so it will be, quote, sticks throughout the winter. Y'all, that's okay. I don't mind parts of my garden going to rest and going to sleep in the wintertime, because we all need a rest, you know? And sometimes when I look out of my garden, it helps me in my brain. The plants are sleeping, and so that kind of gives me permission. I know that's kind of weird, but it gives me permission to rest as a gardener as well. So, you know, and how many people are really out in their garden all the time in the wintertime? Unless you're like in South Florida or Southern California, probably not a ton of us. Now, I was going to talk about the container that I've had for several years, and that is this guy. So this guy right here is it's some sort of composite, like lack of a better word, like a styrofoam. It's not styrofoam, but if you know, it's a super lightweight container that what I'll do is I'll come through and spray paint it to keep it kind of fresh looking. And you can see it probably needs a little bit of love right now. But it has got a hosta in there, and then it's got a Japanese painted fern. Literally has been in here in this spot, like I said, probably for 6 years. And so it gets afternoon sun, not on irrigation. When we come through to water some things, and then we will go through and go ahead and give it a shot of water, right? Another great ones for the shade in your containers with your annuals. You've got your begonias. That is, I don't know, that may be a dragon wing. I think that is a dragon wing, angel wing begonia in the pink, caladiums, you name it. And then last but not least, I have to talk about the autumn ferns, right? So this is Brilliance autumn fern. These are in the ground. They are a great evergreen fern that just love life here. They do really well. You can do filtered sun, you can do morning sun, you can do these, get hot afternoon sun just for a small amount of time, and they can handle it really, really well. I know if you're a southern gardener, you know what that little guy is right here. Yes, poplar trees. So poplar trees, this is a tulip poplar. They are prolific around here, and they are like a weed. So pulling them out, otherwise this guy will turn into a 40-50 foot tree right here, which is really not what I want right here. So when we see our tulip poplars just sprouting everywhere, then we pull them out, because my word, they are prolific. I think we could start a whole nother division of Creekside Nursery just on the tulip poplar population around here. But I hope you have found this helpful and inspiring. We could literally go through here and talk for hours about all the different kinds of plants for your shade garden, because there are so many. That is the beautiful thing about plants, right? Whether it's sun, part shade, it doesn't matter. There are just numerous choices out there. So we really encourage you, go to your local garden center. Even if it's mid-July and it's hot and it's miserable, if they're open, go visit them, right? Go visit your garden center throughout the entire year, not just in the spring. Yeah, spring is most definitely like the absolute biggest time of the year for garden centers, because people are coming out of winter, they're super excited. But when you visit in this, like throughout the year, you see what is blooming. This is not a shade garden, but just for example, right? When we have our customers, our visitors come here in the early spring, this flower bed does not look like this. Yes, there are things blooming, but right now, here we have this bed. You've got your panicle hydrangeas and you've got your summerific hibiscus that are blooming. When you come, and there's even some rudbeckia down in there. So when you come in the spring, you don't see that. You may see sticks, you may see some foliage, but you don't get to see the gorgeous color. You don't get to see your macrophylla hydrangeas blooming or your smooth hydrangeas blooming. Your hostas certainly aren't blooming. Your hostas may just be little stubs. But when you come throughout the season, you get to see them in all of their glory, and that helps tremendously, right? Even if you're not even ready to plant those in your garden right now, I think that's one of those traits as gardeners, is we have a little stash somewhere. Sometimes that stash gets bigger than others, but it's where you're at the garden center, especially if you're like me, you're at the garden center, you're at the nursery, my own nursery, and I'm like, ooh, look at this plant. And I'll grab it and take it home, and you go, well, where's that going? And I'm like, I don't know. I'll find somewhere to put it. So that's how I a lot of times tend to garden in that way. And from talking with y'all, a lot of you do that as well. So when you're at your garden center, even if you're not ready to plant that plant, go ahead and grab it, because you see it. You can always move it up to a bigger container. You can put a saucer underneath it, put it close by, where the hose is or water gets it. And then when it comes time, then you can add it to the ground. Yeah, add it to your landscape. All right, my friends, as always, we appreciate you. Hope you found this fun, informative, inspirational. We'll see y'all in the next video. Bye, friends.